I'm going to go through the Representation of the People Acts. There's quite a lot of them, but some of them are very minimal and have only got a small amount of legislation in it, a small number of provisions, just slight adjustments and amendments. It looks like the earlier ones are still in force, what it was actually founded on and based on. But for example, the first Representation of the People's Acts came about due to the suffragettes and, wanting the women's vote and so forth. But a lot of the Representation of the People Acts revolves around electors, eligibility for elections. And the judiciary for the courts use this act to see who is eligible to be chosen for juries. So it is actually relevant to criminal and civil cases in the courts, because they use this act for selecting juries, because it's about electors and elections and who's eligible to be citizens, who are citizens and who's eligible in this country. So this Representation of the People Act 1991 is actually only very small. If you see here, look, there are only 3 sections, right? Now, for example, I'll just brief you on this section here, right? So what is the purpose of this section? Well, this section mainly covers the returning officer who's working on the election, participating in the operations of the election, claiming the expenses back from Parliament for various operations, including the postal and mail costs. Now, this is the problem that I've got with this act, right? So in the earlier Representation of the People's Act, I think it's the first one actually, there are some clauses, notable clauses like 100 is that, illegal canvassing of police. That's a very interesting clause in an act of law, because it's preventing police from interfering with certain proceedings and procedures, and in elections they're not allowed to. So that puts into question whether police can actually take down notices and signs regarding anything to do with elections, and possibly even petitions as well. I should have raised that clause when I was doing my petition and they were taking the notices down, if I'd have known about it. As well as 100, I know that off the top of my head, for illegal police canvassing, there's a provision for the use of vehicles, which is a designated vehicle used by the candidate or on behalf of the candidate, and that vehicle will be recognised for purposes of being used for the election, and it will have a sign on it to identify that vehicle, to give notice that it is being used for such purposes. And then there's another provision for post, and it's the right to send post free of charge. So you didn't actually pay for the post in the first place. The right to send post free of charge. So you were never charged for it in the first place. You could send one communication, one letter to each electorate. Now, the thing with that is that, so you never actually paid for it in the first place, but you likely would have to register with Royal Mail, or they had some sort of free post address that you wrote on it to identify that it was free of charge. I don't know how they took note of how many you were sending to each address. You likely applied for a franking machine and they probably gave you a franking number. That's what I'm guessing. But I've mentioned this before. But my question is this. Since Royal Mail was privatised and sold off, it's not the public's anymore, it's still used, they still use Royal Mail, but it's not publicly owned by the government and the public. So it used to be taxpayer owned and operated, so there were certain rights and privileges we had to use in post, which were free of charge under political rights. Now, the thing is that the election law is based on the 1688 Bill of Rights when it comes to the elections ought to be free. And that is statute law setting a legal requirement that we don't pay for elections. Now, the problem is that they have to be free and you can't be charged for them. So the question arises, when David Cameron, the Prime Minister, in all his wisdom, wanted to sell off Royal Mail, and BT, all the public services, they now have these provisions in these acts where any expenses you have to claim money back from Parliament. But the thing is, you claim the money back from Parliament so you recover costs, right? Costs are recovered. So if you are doing something and it costs money, but then you shouldn't have to pay that money, so Parliament gives the money back to you. But where did your money go to? You didn't pay Parliament in the first place. You paid it to like Royal Mail, for example. So they've made a profit out of you, but then you claim it back from the government for expenses. But that means that a private company has made a profit out of something where it was meant to provide a service, but obviously it's not the public owned anymore. But the thing is, the 1688 Bill of Rights says you can't be charged. A charge is a fine is a charge. Now, that means that money cannot leave you. The law is that it has to be free. But when you pay Royal Mail, right, they're charging you. Royal Mail are charging a money and also making a profit. So someone makes a profit out of it and then you're at a loss, but then you claim it back from Parliament, right? So yeah, it didn't cost you. You get money back, but the thing is, if you are going to undertake something, the power to undertake it is the power to do it without charge, or else you don't have a power. If you've got money on you, they're charging you, and then you get the money back after. So if you don't have the money on you in the first place, you can't do it, because they will not deliver the mail or do function without you paying them. So it's not free. So unless you are charged with monies, you can't do it. Now, the way they've got it in here is that you pay and then you claim it back after. So you recover from being charged, right? But the thing is, that's an obstruction, because if you don't have money, then no one will act. No one will engage. No one will proceed. You can't proceed, So this is the thing. I don't think that it's compatible with statute law, and I think that it's contradiction, because it's kind of like saying, it's free to enter this competition or this race. It's free. That means that anyone can enter. There's no obstruction, handicap, or hindrance to entering. Anyone can enter, yet you can't. If they're charging you money, and it's £10, then if you don't have the £10 up front, you cannot proceed to enter and participate. And that even if you pay it and then claim it back afterwards, you've recovered. If you run a race, you're tired at the end, you recover. But how do you enter it? Well, there cannot be no charge in the first place. This is the thing. But they're making a charge now with Royal Mail. And then they do this process to claim it back. I don't think that it's lawful. And this is another reason why I think David Cameron, these Oxford preps have ruined and broken the democratic function, and then they've ended up making a lot of investment money and proceeds out of these businesses by investing in them themselves. I think it's illegal because I know that David Cameron has broken the law with the national speed limit when, 3.5 ton vans are classed as a car, and then they're supposed to be the same speed limit as a car, but yet then they suddenly started saying that it was 60 on a single carriageway, not 70 like a car. So, or 50 even. Basically, they started saying that the speed limit from a 70 mile an hour on a dual carriageway, and 60 on a single carriageway, that's for a car, and a 3.5 ton van included in that. And I have got the proof on the 1993 driving licence evidence that the government had published that any vehicle under 3.5 tons was not to be regarded as a goods vehicle. So it wasn't to be regarded as a goods vehicle. But yet they were prosecuting people at those speeds in those vehicles after David Cameron made some changes to information. So there's quite a few things that David Cameron, I think, has done wrong. Same way with the seatbelt and Alistair Darling. These are what we call errors, and it's incompatible law because these people, they get into the government and they think they can do exactly what they want, but there are only certain things that you can do. They're actually making law that's incompatible with statute law. And what's actually happening is that there's actually... Where's the government getting its money from to reimburse? It's getting it from the tax money, from the taxpayer. So all the public are paying taxes to the government, right? And then they run an election, and then the actual private... That means, the all of the functioning for the elections and so forth, we're paying for. But before, there wasn't a cost at all because we actually owned Royal Mail and we didn't charge ourselves for it. Royal Mail did it for nothing. But now someone's making a profit out of it. So when you pay Royal Mail, they make a profit out of it. But the services provided by Royal Mail, the taxpayer pays Royal Mail for it, and they make a profit out of it, whereas before, there was no profit. So private companies making profits out of the taxpayer, basically. And I don't think that's right. And I think that is the model for the corruption of, from David Cameron onwards. I think this kind of globalist takeover is really taking the money out of the people, out of the public. And then the worst part of it is that they're suing the government when the government is doing things that affect their future potential profits, but they're stealing money from us. We used to own those companies and we didn't even used to charge ourselves for certain services. They were free. So it didn't actually cost the taxpayer anything because we didn't charge ourselves for it anyway. We just figured it in with the Royal Mail's daily rounds and we didn't charge ourselves for it. And then these companies have got the cheek to prosecute us, government. And then they're bringing policies in that they're making us consent to these policies, consent, submit, accept, when it's not even the law of England. And they're even trying to claim, you don't have rights and so forth. So David Cameron, possibly even Tony Blair, because, with his digital ID and so forth, I don't think that there's much difference between Tony Blair and David Cameron. They both wanted to, we've all got digital ID in our hands. I'm talking into it now with my mobile phone. That is the digital ID. You know, so having a plastic card is a bit of a joke, really. There's something not right about this. So the rest of the Representation of the People Acts, I want to look into, because there are certain regulations around promotion of campaigns. I don't think the public are allowed to actually, according to that, we're allowed to promote our own petition campaigns, our own petition casework. But when there's an election on, or a referendum, I think that because we aren't promoting it ourselves privately, to try and get signatures in order for it to be run by the government, once you get a referendum or an election, which will be an official process, you've petitioned for that. Once you've got it, it is to be run what we call everyone will be asked anyway under government money, not you having to go around and ask everyone yourself. That's the difference. When you're trying to obtain a referendum or election or an action through government, you're doing it, you're the one who's got to go yourself to get the public support. And then once you've done that, then it will be done then by the government on behalf of the government, and they will notify everyone. And then that's on the taxpayers' money. And that's when you're not allowed to interfere or affect, this is when you've got all these broadcasting restrictions and so forth, which brings Rees-Mogg under scrutiny for his own self-gain. And then there's the prosecutions for it, because it is a petitions, if it's a parliamentary election, because it's under jurisdiction of Parliament, the prosecutions are supposed to be brought to the High Court if there's any question of authenticity in the election. And that's actually what I want to look at in this complaint, believe it or not, even though I've been talking for 17 minutes. Because I'm going to report in this mayoral election in London now, because I think that we're being blackmailed over the ULEZ scheme. Because they've already collected all these signatures, which then is entitled to a resolution from Parliament, and the cameras have to be turned off. But what they're doing is they've got a mayoral election, and then the same political party, the Conservatives, who have got this Sue Hall, she's one of the people who's been handed one of those petitions. So we collected all the tickets to afford a resolution and have the cameras turned off. Yeah, what's happening is that this Sue Hall is claiming that if the Tories, the Conservative Party, is saying if they vote for their candidate, Sue Hall, then they'll turn the cameras off. Right? And in order to vote for her, you have to collect all the tickets, all the votes. Right? And then, if elected, she will walk up to the cameras and press the button off as mayor. But all those tickets collected, we've already collected and already voted the tickets into Parliament for a petition for a resolution of the House of Commons. And the resolution is not vote for Sue Hall, because we collected all the signatures for the resolution from the Prime Minister in House of Commons. So why would we collect all those 200,000 signatures for a resolution for House of Commons so Rishi Sunak can say to Sadiq Khan, turn the cameras off, because that's what the Tories want to do. But what he's doing is he's saying, no, I'm not going to do it. If you vote for, that's the blackmail. If you vote for my colleague Sue Hall, who is also a Tory in my party, then she will turn the cameras off as the mayor. But only if you go in and sign the bits of paper for the tickets. But we've already got 200,000 signatures for a resolution from the House of Commons, so they can make a decision to turn the cameras off. That's what they're for. But the thing is, the Conservative Party have got the Prime Minister, who's the Prime Minister, who gets it put through Parliament. But they're refusing to do that. They're saying, so that is a blackmail. They're blackmailing us for Sue Hall. They're saying, if we know that you've collected all these golden tickets, 400,000 of them because there's 2 petitions, but they all need checking, and there's 3 petitions because there's Dave Fowler's. You've handed all in these golden tickets to the Prime Minister, and the cameras actually have to be turned off in pursuit of that resolution according to law. So, and the Conservative Party, of which the Prime Minister is meant to be, he's the Prime Minister, the Conservative Party, they're saying that they're opposed to ULEZ. So why isn't he giving the resolution in Parliament? What he's actually done is, you've done all this work and collected all the tickets, but he's refusing to do it. He's refusing to turn the cameras off, and then there's all this damage and protests and so forth, and he's blaming everyone else. And then he's saying, well, if you vote for my candidate, Sue Hall, then, as mayor, she'll turn the cameras off. But we don't need that, because we're petitioning Parliament for a resolution, and the statutory instrument power and order from the mayor is annulled. It says that in the Justices of the Peace Act, because the mayor only can make orders as a commissioner, a commissioner, which is same as Justice of the Peace. So, never mind the word blackmail. David Cameron, that's blackmail when a private company is making money is extorting money, right, from the system to make a private profit out of something that is illegal to be charged for, and then the taxpayer is taking up the cost from Parliament, reimbursing it from the taxpayer. So a private company walks away with a profit from something not only should be free, but it was actually you cannot be charged for it. Because it's like saying, it's like having a competition on, if a competition is free to enter, but now it's not free to enter. They say, no, it's £10 to enter, but we'll give you it back afterwards. But how can you enter if you don't have to? If you get loads of paupers turning up, that means paupers can't enter because they don't have £10, right? Unless they get sponsored. But at the start, you didn't need to be sponsored. It was free. It was free. And this is the whole thing with the putting up with the London Mayor. They're saying, it's so much money, £10,000 deposit or whatever, and you get it back if you get over 5% of the vote or whatever. But for the mail, for the post, you don't need any percentage or anything. You get one letter free. So it is that's blackmail, because when they sold Royal Mail off, a private company is making a profit out of it, out of something that there wasn't even a loss, because what they did is they delivered the mail and sucked it up into the normal. They absorbed the costs into the regular operations of the business, and there wasn't really an extra cost because they're processing all the letters every day anyway and delivering to more or less the same addresses. So it wouldn't really affect a postman's round or the processing of letters negligibly. So there wasn't really an operational